Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I will give a couple of minutes, of course, to hopefully allow as many people that want to come in to join us as possible. Of course, we'll try not to waste too much time as well. Okay, so welcome, everyone. This is probably the fifth or sixth webinar that we have done. We are trying to hopefully do these webinars more often to try to, of course, go through a lot of the different types of programs, new programs of immigration in Canada, and hopefully help as many people as possible, try to introduce ourselves so you get to know us. Of course, this is a relationship between our law firm and if you decide to begin this process to immigrate to Canada. This is a long distance relationship, and the idea is, of course, to explain and show everything about us so that you feel comfortable as you move along with your process. Things in Canada change all the time. Immigration laws, immigration rules change all the time. So it's important to start your process as soon as possible to understand all the options that you have available for you to come to Canada. Things we just saw this year that in terms of study permits, there was laws that changed in terms of quotas, in terms of family reunification, in terms of work permits, a lot of things that change all the time, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So it's important that if you're eligible, you know that you're able to come to Canada on a certain program, that you start as soon as possible so you don't miss out on your chance to come to Canada. So I wanted to, of course, introduce myself a little bit, explain a little bit, a little overview of immigration to Canada. Hopefully in the future webinars, we'll be able to go more in detail on different types of programs and how you're able to come to Canada and everything. But today, just go through a little bit of an overview, general, different types of options on how you come to Canada, different types of concepts regarding immigration to Canada. And I will leave, that will be for maybe about 15 minutes. And then I will leave a certain amount of time for questions, for a question period. So if you have any questions, of course, you can already start now by writing in the chat any questions that you have. Start writing the questions in the chat, anything that you want to know, any questions you have regarding anything that I've said today or anything in general. And then I will go through each question by one and hopefully be able to answer all the questions that you have for me, have for immigration in general. If there's something, of course, I'm not able to answer, I will try my best, of course, to get back to you with the answer that I will not be able to necessarily have at the moment. So, as a lot of you might know, my name is Joseph Rebibo. I am a lawyer in Montreal, in Quebec, the province of Quebec in Canada. The province of Quebec is one of many provinces in Canada. It is a province that is both bilingual, French and English. So I speak both French and English as well. But of course, I am a lawyer. We are a law firm in Quebec. We are, of course, allowed. There are no borders within Canada. There are just different provinces. But we are, of course, allowed to do immigration to help you immigrate to any province in Canada. Of course, it's important to understand that Canada is a very big hub for immigration. And one of the reasons is because Canada is the second biggest country in the world, but there are only 40 million people that live in Canada. Just to give a little bit of a contrast, you have the United States, which is on our border, which is not as big as Canada at all. And there are about 400 million people in the United States. So Canada, one of the biggest countries, bigger than the United States, and it has much, much less people in Canada. And that is why there was so much news going around about Canada, about immigration to Canada, about working in Canada. The government always comes out with different types of programs for people to come work, come immigrate, gain permanent residency in Canada. And we are here trying to find a solution for you on how you can be able to come to Canada, get permanent residency, whether you're eligible for permanent residency right away, whether you're not, find you a plan, an overview, step by step on how you're going to come to Canada, even if it's temporarily, to eventually, of course, get permanent residency in Canada. That is our goal. That is what we are here to do for you. Of course, I'm a lawyer, okay, registered. One thing that's very important that I want to talk about is, of course, all the different types of agencies and companies that are online. The reason why I wanted to talk about that right now and take some time to talk about that is because there are a lot of course, companies that do not do anything. There are frauds. They will try to entice you to start an immigration plan to Canada and then will not do anything for your specific profile. One of the ways to avoid this is to do the proper verifications on the company, agency, law firm that is bringing you to Canada. It is important to know exactly who you are talking to. It's important to also verify that the lawyer or the law firm is registered both as a company in Canada and that the lawyer is also registered as a registered lawyer in one of the bar associations in Canada as well. If you are with us in this webinar, probably you are speaking to one of our agents, somebody that directed you to the webinar. And this person usually probably had sent you an email regarding the verifications on how to verify us as a registered law firm, me as a registered lawyer. So please go on those emails, verify these things. It's very important. We send out these emails because we want to be transparent. We want you to be able to find us and be, of course, 100% confident of who you are dealing with, who you are speaking to, okay? And of course, very important to understand, of course, that you are in good hands. Someone said I can hear you on the chat. If this is a general problem, if other people can write that. If not, then maybe it is something with your computer or your phone. Please check these things. I believe that everybody else can hear. I hope everyone else can hear. If there's any issue, please write in the chat so I can hopefully fix the issue. Okay, great. So the audio is great. I am glad. Okay, so as I was saying, it's been a few years that I've been specialized in immigration to Canada. It's important to understand that obviously immigration to Canada takes time. It's a step-by-step process, okay? And we are here to guide you step-by-step in order for you to be able to come to Canada as soon as possible. I want to do a little bit of an overview. I went through a little bit right now of how to verify us. If you have any issue verifying us or anything, our goal here is that we are transparent. We are able to answer any questions you have. So if there's anything that you're not sure of or you find that is you haven't researched us properly, you're not able to find us properly, please ask us. That is why we're here. That is what we want to show you. It is important for us that you do not, whether you do your immigration process with us or not, that is perfectly okay. But the idea is that you do not do the immigration process with a fake company, with a fraudulent company, just because they look good online, they sound good online. It's important that you know exactly who you are dealing with. It's important that you know exactly that you're dealing with a law firm, that you're dealing with a registered company in Canada. The majority of people, if you get contacted online, there's a very high chance that it is a fraudulent company. So please do the proper verifications and everything, and ask questions. Always ask questions. Any question, there is not enough questions that you can ask. Any question should always be able to be answered by the organization that you're deciding to use to immigrate to Canada. A little bit of an overview about immigration to Canada. We have two different types of ways that somebody could come to Canada. If you are outside of Canada and you don't have any experience in Canada, that means you've never been to Canada, you haven't worked in Canada, you haven't studied in Canada, you haven't even visited Canada, it is important you understand there are two ways you can come. One of the ways you can come to Canada is coming to Canada directly under permanent residency. That means arriving with permanent residency in Canada. And the other way is arriving with temporary residency in Canada. Permanent residency in Canada, of course, without any experience in Canada, is much harder to attain. It is not impossible, but of course, it is much harder to attain because the Canadian government wants to see that you are coming to Canada, you are going to respect the laws, you are going to be a model citizen, you are going to contribute something to society, to the Canadian society, and then it is much easier to get permanent residency. So that means that normally the general case for majority of people that come to Canada and get permanent residency is that they're going to come to Canada temporarily, which means that on your visa, you will have a expiry date on your visa. But our goal as a law firm, and that is why you will be using a law firm or anybody that is, of course, registered, able to help you come to Canada. Our goal is to give you a step-by-step plan on how you're going to gain permanent residency, even if you're coming to Canada temporarily. So you understand what you need to do, what your profile needs to do in terms of study or work or anything else in order to eventually gain permanent residency. Our goal is never for you to come to Canada and then eventually have to leave. Our goal is, of course, to give you an option, a plan on how eventually you will get permanent residency in Canada. That is the most important thing. So, as I said, definitely a little bit harder to get permanent residency directly without any experience in Canada. Not impossible, but candidates usually have to have very specific profiles to be eligible to be able to apply directly for permanent residency and to land in Canada with permanent residency with a work permit and not have any issue with visa expirations or things like that. But it's important that you understand, do not feel bad if you're not eligible for permanent residency. Probably the majority, over 50%, are not necessarily eligible for permanent residency directly off the bat. That is for permanent residency. For temporary residency, the idea is, of course, as I said, coming to Canada temporarily to eventually gain enough points, gain enough experience in Canada to be able to apply for permanent residency. There are three different ways you can come to Canada temporarily. You can come to Canada either to study, either to work, or you can come to Canada to visit. The most important thing that it is important to understand when coming to Canada on one of these visas, either a visitor visa, a study permit, or a work permit, is that you can always, for the moment, hopefully things don't change in Canada, but for the moment, you can always convert your status, your permit in Canada from one permit to another. That means if you come to Canada as a student, you can always convert your study permit to a work permit. If you come to Canada as a worker, you could, if needed be, convert your work permit to a study permit. More importantly, if you come to Canada as a visitor at the moment, you can convert your visitor visa to a study permit. You can convert your visitor visa to a work permit. That's very important because if you come to Canada, you're able to find a job, you're able to meet employers face to face. It would be important. We can also hopefully help in finding jobs in Canada. Once you find a job in Canada and you have an employer that wants to sponsor you, that wants to hire you, then you could always change your status from one status to the other and eventually, of course, attain whatever steps you need to gain permanent residency. For study permit specifically, it is one of the better options in general of how coming to Canada to eventually gain permanent residency. The reason for why study permit is usually the best option is because when you come to Canada on a study permit, you also get a work permit on the side. That means you're gaining work experience and you're gaining studies, or you're getting education experience at the same time. So when we're talking about permanent residency, you want to show the most amount of experience that you've done in Canada to eventually apply for permanent residency. So if you're working and you're studying, you're getting double the amount of experience for studying and working, which will probably give you in general a higher level file to eventually apply for permanent residency. Doesn't mean it's the only option to get permanent residency, but it's usually a good option because you are gaining a Canadian diploma, which is also very important. Getting a Canadian diploma is extremely important because it'll allow you it'll give you much higher chances of finding a job in Canada, finding a better job in Canada. It'll give you more points when applying for permanent residency when you have a Canadian diploma. It doesn't mean that your international diploma is not valid. International diplomas are definitely 100% valid when it comes to immigration to Canada. Maybe less valid when it comes to finding a job in Canada, but for immigration, it is always valid, but it'll always be more valid to have a Canadian diploma. Of course, it is a bit more difficult when you have to pay for tuition fees for studies in Canada. There are always different options, different ways to find different types of programs that are not so expensive, payment plans and all that. And those are things that you can always discuss with us to see if we can find a solution for you on how financially, based on your financial situation, you can come to Canada and not have any issue financially with whatever you are planning to do, either study, work, or whatever it needs to be with your family, or if you come solo, same thing. That is for studies. For work, I just want to do a little bit of an overview of work permits in Canada. There are two types of work permits in Canada. You can either get a closed work permit or an open work permit in Canada. A closed work permit is very simple. You find a job offer in Canada. You have an employer that wants to hire you. You will work for this employer for 2 to 3 years after receiving your permit. So a closed work permit means that you are directly associated with your employer that is hiring you. If somebody is hiring you, you will work for that employer for 2 to 3 years. You cannot change employment. You cannot start working for someone else. If you end up, something happens, you lose your job, you have to restart the whole process and find a new employer. You cannot start working for someone else. You cannot work for yourself. So it's a little bit more difficult, but it also is good, advantageous in the sense that it is a secure job that you have in Canada for 2 to 3 years. An open work permit is the opposite. An open work permit allows you to come to Canada on a work permit where you are not attached to a specific employer. You can work for whoever you want. You can work for 3 employers at the same time. You can change jobs one day to the next. You can work for yourself. You're really open to do as you wish. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. There are programs that allow you to be eligible for a closed work permit. There are programs that let you be eligible for an open work permit. Please speak with whichever agent you are speaking to. If you have any questions, I'm also always available as well to see which one you are eligible for. Start your process to see which one you're eligible for so we can move forward. And then hopefully you will choose on your own, of course, which program you want to move forward with, which one is best suited for you. Sometimes closed work permits are better suited for certain people, and sometimes open work permits are better suited for other people. So it really depends on everyone's specific situation. And that is why how we do the process with our law firm is that we do it in a step-by-step, stage-by-stage process. Our first step of the process is knowing how you can come to Canada, knowing what you're eligible for. You will speak to me, you will speak to our agent, you will speak to everyone in our law firm to find out exactly how you're going to come to Canada. You're going to receive a report that will outline all the different types of options that you have. The second stage of our process is choosing the right option for you to how you will come to Canada. Once we agree together on this, whatever option it is, this option is the best option for you. That is when we start the process, and we of course outline to you step by step what are the best options, how we're going to move forward, and that is when we move forward with your process. The most important thing is with immigration is that it's a bit ambiguous all the time to not know which program. There are over 50 different types of programs in Canada. The most important thing is to understand what program you're eligible for, and then everything is clear in your mind. It's clear in your mind, okay, I'm going with this. I know exactly how I'm coming. But the way to find out is to, of course, study your file, take your qualifications, take your experiences, know what type of jobs you can get in Canada, know what either you can study in Canada, know how long it's going to take, know the advantages, disadvantages, immigrating to Canada, moving from your country of residence, country of origin is, of course, a big step. And we are here to help, and we will hopefully try to help you as soon as possible and in the best way possible to help as many people as possible come to Canada. I'm going to leave, of course, as well, our website where you're able to find us on the chat. Okay. And I will leave my email as well. If you have any questions or concerns, specific concerns, you could always send me an email and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. We have a question that says, what is your specialty? The question is concerning what type of specialty in immigration, we would definitely say permanent residency, closed work permits, open work permits, study permits, visitor visas, and permanent residency through either express entry. We specialize a lot in immigration to Quebec as well. Quebec is, as I said, bilingual, French and English. How long can the different visas take to be processed? So it all depends on different types of visas. Study permits, usually the delays are between 2 and 3 months. So work permits can be a couple of months. It depends if you're in Canada. Basically, the idea is that it really depends on the different types of programs on how you're going to come to Canada. When you start the process with us, we will explain to you the different types of programs, how long it takes for each, what are the processing delays for each type of program that you will choose to be able to come to Canada. I cannot say exactly what the different types of lengths or processing times of different visas are because there's so many different types of visas out there. It is very specific to your situation, where you are also in the world. That changes as well. Every country, the delays, the processing time for every country is different. So when you start the process, and we do send you, of course, we do send you the different options on how you can come to Canada. We will also explain to you, of course, based on the different options, how long each visa could take. Do you help people get jobs in order to get a work permit? In terms of jobs, we are not a recruitment agency, okay? Make sure, very important, if anyone contacts you online and says they are a recruitment agency and they're going to find you a job, it is almost 100% a fraud. Nobody does that. Nobody is a recruitment agency that is helping you find a job when you're outside of Canada. Okay, that is not going to happen. Our goal as a law firm is to give you the option on how you're going to get a visa. When you receive a visa to Canada, then we could help you find a job. That is much easier. At that point, that is a different situation. But helping you find the job, just the job, while you are not in Canada, that is not something that we do. We're not a recruitment agency. And as I said, if anyone contacts you regarding recruitment, saying they're a recruitment agency, saying they're going to find you a job, it is most probably a scam. I will send the website again. Okay, next question. Okay. As a close warming, will you help us find a job? 3 years. I'm a nurse. As I said, same question. We're not a recruitment agency. Our job is to help you find a visa, to get a visa to Canada. Once you have a visa to Canada, that is when we could help you find a job. It is possible that we have connections to help you find a job. But helping you find a job, just a job, that is not possible. Nobody will help you do that. That is not how you immigrate to Canada. Immigrating to Canada, you have to find a way that you're going to get a visa, find a program that you're eligible for, and then you can find a job. Even if you're not in Canada yet, that is fine. Is it possible to bring dependents if you want a study visa? Of course, Canada is very pro-family. You can always bring your family to Canada. There is always a main applicant, a principal applicant. Once you have a principal applicant, if you are, let's say, a mother of a family, you have children, and you have a husband, your family can always come with you, and they are dependent of you. That means your children can always study in Canada for free. Okay, when you study in public schools, they study for free in Canada, and your husband, of course, could come to Canada on a different type of visa as well. So Canada is very pro-family, always able to bring your family with you to Canada. How long will it take for a closed work permit from the UK? It completely depends. Closed work permit means you're attached to an employer. If you have an employer that wants to hire you, then usually probably it could take between 6 months and a year. How good is it for visitor visas and then change to work permit? So having a visitor visa in Canada, there was of course, at the moment, as I explained just before, you were able to come to Canada on a visitor visa and then change your status to a work permit. That is a great option in general, of course. But of course, when you come to Canada on a visitor visa, you won't be able to work when you're in Canada until you're able to change your permit. The processing time does not take so long. While you're in Canada, everything in general, changing permits while in Canada is much shorter than when you're outside of Canada. So usually when you're in Canada, it probably will take a few months because once you're able to get your LMIA, which is a labor market impact assessment, once you're able to get the approval to work for that employer, you can usually go to the border and pick up your work permit. So in general, it could take a few months. And in the meantime, you're going to have to be able to, of course, figure out a way to be able to stay in Canada until you're able to convert your permit. But of course, in general, doing that could be a very good option for you because having a work permit for 2-3 years could eventually get you permanent residency in Canada. I'm a caregiver. Can you help me to find a suitable job for me, and how long does it take and all the fees? As I said a few times in the past, we're not a recruitment agency. We'll not find you a job when you have no visa to Canada. If you start your process with us, we will give you the options on how you will come to Canada. By saying how you will come to Canada, that means how you will get a visa to come to Canada. Once you have a visa in Canada, that is when we're able to help you find a job in Canada. So first, it's starting the process. That's the first step with us, finding out what you're eligible for. Step 2 of the process is applying for your visa, doing the steps in order to get a visa to Canada, and then we are able to hopefully find you a job for you to settle in Canada. Of course, something that's very important as well, our office is in Montreal in Canada. We are always open. That means if you have relatives or friends that want to come see us, that want to come talk to us or anything like that, please speak to your agent. Tell them my friend or family wants to come to the office to see us. We have no issue with that whatsoever. Usually during the day, during the week, we're always open. Usually depends on the weekends. If we have office hours or not, but you can always ask your agent, ask me as well. When you'll be coming to the office, we always have the door open. We always like to meet potential clients, meet family members. It is very important for us as well that you're able to understand, you feel comfortable, that you're able to come see us, because this being a long distance relationship, of course, it is a little bit difficult in terms of communication, maybe, but we're always available, always here, and we would be happy, of course, to see you. How much does the visa closed work permit cost in total? A closed work permit means that you have a job, okay, in Canada, and you're coming to work for that employer. The cost, we cannot speak about the cost. Once you start your process, we're able to explain to you how much things cost, what type of processes, what are the fees for different type of processes. But the cost is based on the amount of work that is being put into your file. We are a law firm. We're not an agency. We're not a company. The cost, the amount, the fees that you're paying, or it's based on how much work per hour that we're working on your file. So it depends on your specific situation. If you have an easier file, it could be cheaper. If you have a more difficult file, it could be more expensive. But it completely depends on your qualifications, your experiences. When you start your file and you know exactly what we can apply for, at that moment, we're able to tell you exactly how much things will cost. And then you will make the decision on your own if you decide that you want to continue the process or not based on those fees. But in general, I could say that in comparison to other law firms in Canada, I would definitely say that we are on the cheaper end of fees. And the reason for that is because we are more online. We try to acquire, of course, clients online. So we try to help people that are outside of Canada to be able to come to Canada and to avoid using companies or agencies that are scams. And that is why we're trying to have a good presence online to help you guys. My visitor visa already refused. How can I apply again? It's supposed to get visa next time. So depending on how you applied for your visitor visa, it is important to, of course, check if you applied on your own or not. The reason why, in general, people use law firms, people use consultants to come to Canada is because there are certain things that we know we're able to answer to the government that if you did it on your own, you wouldn't be able to know, because you don't have the experience, you didn't apply. I mean, I've done thousands of visitor visas, study permits, work permits, and I've gone through refusals, gone through acceptances, and know exactly what the government wants to see for your file. So if you did the application yourself, start the process. We will explain to you what we will do different to get you approved. Another thing that's important, if you get a refusal on either a study permit, a visitor visa, or anything, it's important to do an ATIP request to see why the government refused you. You need to use a Canadian citizen to do this request. That means that you're going to get the notes from the government, and the government will tell you why they refused you. And based on this note, you will be able to reapply again and answer the specific problems that the government had with your application. So if you had a refusal, you can call us and tell us you want to get the notes on why you got refused. We will do the application online. It takes about 30 days. Once we receive it, we'll send it to you. You will see what the reasons are of your refusal, and then you could apply again. What if my brother supports me financially from UK and you do self-employed? Is that okay? Of course, supporting financially by family members, friends is always okay. Usually they would have to write a letter that says they're going to financially support you when you come to Canada. And in terms of finances in Canada, that is usually always okay. There is no issue with that. Of course, the closer the person is to you, a brother, a family member, the better it is. You're proving to the government that that it's a family member that's going to help you, and there are much higher chances that the government understands that this person is really there to help you, and not just saying that they're going to help you financially if it is someone random or a friend or somebody that is not your family. So of course, a family member that wants to support you financially is always okay. It can always help your process, and it could, in certain situations, be as if that is the money that you have. So if they prove money for you for your finances, it is almost exactly the same, like as if that was your money as well. Any other questions? I will also leave my email here if anybody has specific questions in general. Okay. You can always send me an email as well. If I want to come as a student, what are the processes? Are there any scholarships? Scholarships in general are possible. It depends on your specific situation. There are scholarships in certain fields, and scholarships that in certain fields are not available for internationals. So it really depends on the school. It really depends on the time right now in the government. The government gives specific scholarships every month. It could change. When you start your process, we'll be able to tell you, of course, our goal is to help you as much as possible. We'll be able to tell you if you could be eligible for a scholarship or not. So that it's a bit difficult for me to say right now what scholarships are available because it depends on your specific situation. But once you begin your process, that is something that will be able to help you out with as well, of course. How long would the visa last for? It depends. If you're coming on a study permit, the visa could last for the length of your studies. But then if you're coming on a study permit, the length of your studies will always, when you complete your studies, you'll be able to be eligible for a work permit after your studies. So your visa always could get extended. If you come as a visitor visa, you could always extend your visa. If you come as a work permit, once your 2 to 3 years is up on your work permit, there is always a possibility of extension as well if you're not yet able to apply for permanent residency. But the idea is that before your visa expires, hopefully you'll be eligible, you will apply for permanent residency. All right. I hope I was able to answer a lot of the questions that you guys had. As I said, please, if you have any questions, any concerns, anything at all, you can always speak with your agent you're speaking to. You could always speak with us. We are always available. The idea with us is to be as transparent as possible, okay, and to give as much detail regarding your process, regarding the options you have, and the steps needed in order to eventually gain permanent residency. We hope, of course, to see all of you in Canada as soon as possible. And I hope to speak with you when you start your process to get you started ASAP. And as I said, we will try to continue doing webinars in the future, hopefully every couple of weeks, and hopefully you're able to attend. This webinar was a little bit of a generality on immigration to Canada, but we will try to do webinars where we're able to go more in depth on the different types of programs, more in depth also on different policies that the Canadian government is talking about every month. The Canadian government comes out with different policies. We try to upload articles. If you go on our website, you'll be able to see different articles about new policy changes. So based on that, we're trying to give out as much information as possible to the public to put you in the best position possible to immigrate to Canada. Thank you for everyone for attending. And I hope to see you at the next webinar as soon as possible, and we will keep you updated on that. Thank you and have a great weekend as well.